been nibbling around the edges of one thing, it seems to me, in our talk. There's been little facets of the different joys that have come through the ministry, but particularly through doxology. And I'd love to hear you talk more about that. What joys do you have because of doxology?
Yeah. Well, it's a topic near and dear to my heart. I'm just sorry that Beverly Yankee isn't here, because I think it would be wonderful to have both perspectives on a particular question. But I'll just give you a heads up. That being who she is and me being who I am, we both have kind of, over the years, had a standard response. We're going on, approaching the 10th year of operation now. And she's always shocked at how well things have gone. And I'm always pleased. And there is a commonality there, that we both rejoice to see what's happening. And maybe just kind of anticipation in terms of the different reactions. But yeah, so when we first started, like 20 years ago, just conceptually thinking in these areas of, at that point it was, how can we assist practicing parish pastors to sharpen their mindset regarding how they would intelligently intersect between the longer heritage of care of souls versus some more contemporary insights of Christian psychology, and how do those go together? If there are points of disagreement or rub, so to speak, where are they? How can psychology assist us as pastors? So as we started talking about that, it was for the benefit of those pastors who were actively engaged in ministry at that time. At the point then when we got the task force together, then we did some further research, and then we began to explore other dimensions, and that's when we got into the area of continuing education and advanced skills. So what's been very gratifying to me is on several levels, hard to enumerate them right now, but I'll enumerate them as I go. I think the first one would be in terms of awareness, in terms of in-depth grasping of the pastoral vocation and identity, as you put it, Tim. So that increasingly now scores of pastors, and at this point now, 2017, we've had well over 600 pastors been exposed to this, and to varying degrees have embraced what they've heard and found. But to be more confident in their own ministry, to be more content and engaged, I think, along the lines of what we were talking about earlier, so that they're not just going through the motions. And when they do see that happening, they know what to do about it. So that's a basic skill. I think that's helpful and very gratifying. But then beyond that, in terms of their own well-being, both emotionally and spiritually speaking, we've had innumerable situations where men have come through the program and for the first time kind of took an honest look and say, maybe these things are areas that need some addressing. So I'm suffering emotionally, maybe I need to get some assistance with that. If I'm suffering spiritually, maybe I need to get some pastoral care. And so there's been many, many men who have been very much helped with that. You gentlemen probably have heard a few of these stories, and they're not stories, they're true incidents where men have told us, quite literally, you saved my ministry. Well, we would expect that. You saved my marriage, which is deeply gratifying. But then what's very humbling is you saved my life. So when a guy is that depleted, that despairing, it's heartening to do. We know the tragic stories that are out there. And so to offer a lifeline is wonderful. And yet at the same time, and that's, I think, one of the things we've been trying to do continually is to say we're not just for pastors who are at the end of the road. The primary thrust is to build advanced skills that you can use in active ministry in full stride. When things are going wonderful, here's some tools that are very useful for you. I remember hearing somebody said, as doxology gains a reputation and a good reputation around the church, and then it said, well, I'd sure like to come to doxology, but I'm not bad enough yet. Well, that's as true. We're honest, I suppose. It's a continual process, but that thrust in gaining advanced skills for ministry is in the forefront.
But when you were kind of crafting doxology, the curriculum at the beginning, I thought, hey, this is going to be the most helpful thing, and this will be also helpful. And then as you've seen guys interact with the stuff, did that meet your expectations, or were there surprises?
Well, I guess it's like anything else, and you know that as a preacher, some of the really gems that you fling out there on a Sunday morning end up as duds, and yet at the same time, kind of throwaway lines are grab hold of it. People say that's a wonderful thing. So you can never tell how things are going to be received, and so I guess there's an element of surprise all along. So what individuals find helpful varies from person to person, as we've found. And I think there's some kind of a core in terms of the definition kinds of things, in terms of what is the classical care of souls. That's kind of at the core of things. How is this cultivated? But then other things having to do with the pastor's devotional life. It's all important, and we've had some that have said, whatever you do, don't change a thing. It's probably unrealistic, but by God's grace, we've been able to put together some useful things. That's great. I guess I'll turn the tables. I'll ask you guys. You've been at this now as a Collegium for, this is what, the third season now? And to be involved at this level and what we've been able to do collectively, and what this means for you individually, what do you discover? Someone else speak at once.
My comment a while ago this morning was about saying we instead of you, and at the San Antonio event last August, and you were there, just the three of us were there, and we were also involved in doing some of the presenting sessions, and the feedback was that I heard from a few people was thank you, and you heard plural in that. It wasn't thank you, Mark, or y'all. Yeah, y'all, all y'all. But it was, they were beginning to perceive, either for the first time or maybe that was just their first experience in the cohort, in the curriculum, and said, oh, this is what doxology looks like. It's not just Hal and Bev.
Yeah.
So, and it was gratifying and it was humbling at the same time that we have become part of this. We as the Collegium have become part of how doxology is presented and perceived in the church. Even your visit to us at Crown of Life, things that I thought I had said to people heard from you a little differently about what is happening through this fellowship. And I guess maybe I've been a little bit reticent to talk about it because it sounds as though I'm tooting my own horn within the congregation. But people went, oh, that sounds really good. So is that a surprise, or is that a shock, or is that being pleased? Maybe all of the above, but that you have allowed us and you have trusted us and not been threatened by other voices and other writing, and not say, no, that's not the doxology brand. The doxology brand is Hal and Bev, and to me that is a great tribute to you as our father and our brother, that you have allowed us that opportunity and welcomed it and encouraged it.
Right. It's the goal, isn't it?
I think a joyful surprise for me is, obviously, practice is determined by doctrine. As somebody said, we have the Lord's Supper during church, we're going to seances because of what our doctrine teaches us. And between the emphasis on knowledge and education at the seminary and then competing models of ministry out there, I kind of wandered around as a pastor thinking the practice of ministry just rubs a little bit against the doctrine. It's not quite right. What I do is not quite the same as what we teach. And the great relief for me in doxology was that what we are learning here to hone our skills actually aligns the holy ministry with what we teach, with what we find in Scripture and confessions. Eugene Peterson talks, I think, the contemplative pastor, maybe with a meeting with him in Kalispell, where he was talking to the pastor and said, but it shouldn't be like that. And so his goal in writing these books was to regain a sense of the holy ministry. And that's been a great comfort for me in doxology, is that it makes me say, this is what a pastor is supposed to be, and this is how the practice comes about. Refocuses.
One of the things that was particularly, I guess it was something that took me back is something to build on what Mark was saying. The fingers of doxology continue to spread with the opportunities that the Collegium has, bringing pastoral care to pastors and their families. This is something that could not happen just with Senkbeil and Bebianchi. The Collegium is very important in that way. One of the times that the rubber hit the road for me was when one of the pastors that I was ministering to at a gathering event during the grand reunion, his wife came up to him and said, "Which one of these men should be my pastor?" And this pastor said, "You go to that guy right there." And the reason why he did that is not because I'm better than the rest of the Collegium men. Well, that goes without saying. But, sorry, humility's not my strong suit. But because I was his pastor at that Collegium event, and we grew in a bond together, and now he and his wife together have grown a bond, and that is extended out well beyond what that event that happened more than a year ago.
And it's a lifeline.
It is a lifeline, and it is again those fingers of doxology that continues to spread out, offering pastoral care well beyond what we're teaching in a group setting, discussing various case studies or what have you. It's going out into the real life, into the ministry of pastors, their families, and their congregations, and that is invaluable. That's just goes beyond. So,
I heard just maybe yesterday, Pastor Fleming was telling me that. So one of the things that when the Marines are training, if you're ever in a vehicle and you take fire, you're so everyone's out of the vehicle, maybe in every different direction. But the thing that you're doing is you're constantly talking, and you're saying what you're seeing, and all of them are talking at the same time.
Okay.
But you're trained now that you're listening to everybody else. So I don't see anyone, or I'm taking fire, or whatever. And so you're listening, and I'm scanning right. I'm looking this way. And everyone's talking at the same time and listening at the same time. And then that becomes a kind of meditation in a way. You're seeing and hearing all at once.
Your perception is amplified that way.
Mm-hmm. And if there's trouble, then everyone is able to go to trouble, and you just know that. And I know that's a fantastic picture of the Collegium. So we're all meditating on what it is to be in the ministry and under fire by the devil, and we are looking at it from every different way. And that conversation then is wonderful,
Well, I was reminded, Lucas recently asked us about a specific situation he's dealing with in terms of looking for additional insight, perspective. And he's quoting Chrysostom, what 1,000 eyes do I need in this situation? Knowing that his 2 eyes is inadequate, so that's where we have benefit there. And so what you gentlemen have been able to build amongst you is what we hope to inculcate in other brother pastors too, in terms of an attitude. It's too good to be kept to ourselves. So, concern one for the other, so that they can build the same kinds of relationships as well. That continues to be one of my prayerful concerns, that we don't be seen as a movement per se, or yet another irritant and the church militant, but rather a catalyst.
Because we need another irritant in the church.
Yeah.
I've received some good feedback from other brother pastors about specifically the work of the Collegium, and he's been very encouraging to me too, because he says, thank you, Matt, and the rest of the guys in the Collegium for shouldering this burden for us, and my position is always like, why am I in this Collegium? And
we've all had one of those.
Because the pride gets a hold of you, and you think, well, we're special, we're different. How come this?
You got the medallion.
Different is right.
Yeah, but it's true. It is a burden. Yeah, as well. I remember mine. Like that first day we got in San Antonio, my class broke and it fell. That's how heavy it was. So I had to put a different class on. But with the burden goes great immense joys as well. And I'm reminded of Paul's writing about the weight of Christ's victory far outweighs the trials that we have here on this plane. But the work that we do in bearing the burden for these other pastors, it's recognized. And a burden shared is half a burden for them. And through our writing and the encouragement of doxology, the blessings of God's Word, I think it amplifies the blessings for these pastors too, and encourages them. Because this young man, well, he's a new pastor, and so he wants to be a better pastor, and knows the other models of ministry aren't exactly it. And so it really helps to clarify him and
Identity and vocation.
So for me, there's like, I'm a mess anyway, trying to bring ideas together. But I love each of you guys and your wives. I mean, it's not that I'm not Teresa, but what dear friends you become through this collegium, which I didn't expect. And I've learned so much. There's so many times where I've said something that I thought was okay, and then somebody objects, and that iron sharpens iron. I mean, better that way. The other great joy for me is that we get to be chaplains at these events. I think it's a huge honor to preach for pastors. And to preach the gospel about the minister to the minister, right? Instead of it just being only forgiveness of sins. I mean, that's really important. But that our labor in the Lord's not in vain. Our Lord actually knows what He's doing and working through His
Take courage, brothers in the Lord.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then the third thing that was a surprise to me was when you called me up one night or texted me one night and said, "Hey, how do you feel about going to Africa?" And to be able to meet with these incredible missionaries in some very challenging situations, and to be sent there as the representative of everybody here to deliver our Lord's gifts to these great people, and it's kind of overwhelming, and yet
deeply gratifying, and also humbling.
Yeah, and to be able to bring Christ's forgiveness and help and comfort and to receive this encouragement from them is great. So thanks. I'm very
Well, it's the
thankful for
way
that.
the church is supposed to be. It's a mutual encouragement society, not a mutual admiration society.
No, yeah. So Paul had anxiety for the churches. Yeah, and so I'm wondering what. And I think he even says he has sleepless nights, and I think they're connected. I'm not sure. He doesn't quite say it that way, but it sure seems to me he's got sleepless nights because of these anxieties for the churches. So maybe what anxieties have you had for the church, and do you have, and what maybe wakes you up?
Well, they're the godly ones, and then there's the ungodly
Okay.
ones. And I think that's true for all of us, our private lives, and then our pastoral lives. I think it's proper to be concerned about the attacks of Satan, the devil, the world, and our sinful flesh. But then you have the promise of our Lord, take no thought for tomorrow will take thought for the things of itself. But he does say, sufficient unto the day. You're going to get your source of trouble. It'll be dished out every day. It's part of the affliction, goes with the territory. And God uses that in his mysterious way to draw us closer to him. It's not as though we say, sign me up for more. But so in my experience, I think there's kind of a mixture, quite honestly, in it. Sorting the two out is important. So the anxieties sometimes are personal in nature, and those are really not particularly healthy, either for me or for anybody else. So to literally become anxious about many things, like Martha, is to lose your calm, your fortitude, your stability, your inner peace, which is found in sitting at the feet of the Lord to receive from him, which gives you strength and stability to endure. Not just to endure, but to finally conquer that disgrace. But it's fine, it's not, in my experience now looking back, 7 decades, usually those conquering episodes are in the rearview mirror. They're never experienced in the moment. So, by the grace of God, and by the skin of my teeth, I just made it through, but came out blessed. It's a horrific situation. So, what does this mean? I think in any given moment, there's more than enough things to worry about. To be able to commend ourselves and those we love into the care and keeping of God at the end of the day is a gift of God's Spirit. And in my experience, it's crucial. And it always must be. And those are the nights when I have the sleepless nights. Because like all sinners, I tend to think it's up to me. But to have concern, I think, that's the healthy concern that the apostle talks about. Where is the attack coming from? You're tending the flock. The flock is under attack. Where are the predators? Who are the weak ones? Where is this coming from? What's going on next time? The battle tactics of the enemy are many, and yet the one who fights for us is stronger than he. So ultimately, it rests there. So part of it is to be able to discern that, okay, this is a valid concern. These are fragile people. They are precious souls for whom Christ died. They've been entrusted to my care. I don't take that lightly. And yet at the same time, I can't possibly cure them. I can't help them. I can't feed them. I can't even protect. I can do nothing other than just to be an errand boy for Jesus in the middle of this mess. And, or as Eugene Peterson say, praying in the middle of traffic. There's always something going on. Hell is busting out somewhere all the time. And certainly the sinful nature is rearing its ugly head. So by worrying about it, I'm not going to be able to make it any better. So learning confident intercessory prayer is the main thing, not the only thing. Using my identity and my calling properly and to address it rather than fretting about it. I do tend to fret by nature. That's a continual challenge. What am I really given to do, honestly speaking? I mean, I can't solve everyone's problems. I can't be working, if I worked 80 or 100 hours a week, I still wouldn't be able to address all the genuine needs of people. So I do what I can with what I've got and realize that tomorrow's another day. The same Lord who planted the seed in this place long before I got here is watering it now, and harvest day is coming, but I may not live to see the day. So tend my crop right now, do my thing, patiently, consistently, faithfully, and realize that the results are out of my control. That helps, I think, emotionally a little bit. And then probably at the same time to realize that my own pride is going to tell me I'm really a hotshot. I really did accomplish something here. People will thank me profusely. I begin to believe that I actually did this. But at the same time, I was Christ's servant in that situation. I was faithful in a little, did that, good results. Give him the thanks, and thank God I was able to be there and to do that. But ultimately, to see myself as a channel rather than the cause of help and strength.
So I had another question planned, which was, it's kind of unrelated, so I'm just going to move on if it's okay. So in this wonderful draft of a book that you're writing, you talk about how you learned a lot from watching your dad and his hard work, and I too love the image of the joy of working very hard and from sun up to sundown. But I was wondering, who were your pastoral mentors? I mean, which pastors really made an impression on you, and in what way to guide you as a pastor?
There are very few that took me under their wing as a mentor, but there are always some from afar who kind of impacted me. I think that's probably why as a child I found something attractive about the ministry. Not that at that point I saw myself doing it. So there was something positive and winsome about the work. The one gentleman I mentioned earlier, I'll mention him by name again, James Rosbach, was very influential simply because he was the right man at the right time. He was placed, I think, by God, who followed the inner call that he had to go away to prepare to be a pastor. And he was kind of the catalyst to say, well, maybe I could do this too. Encouraged me through the years, reached my ordination. So going on a fast forward to the end of my pastoral ministry, a brother and a mentor, John Kleinig, is just inestimable in my view. And what has been truly humbling to me, and you gentlemen now have as probably holding as the highest thing as I do, to realize that he generally views the work that we are doing collectively in doxology as kind of the pinnacle of his entire ministry. This tremendous biblical scholar and wonderful teacher of the church sees coming together in a package, if you will, the whole thing regarding biblical theology and the care of souls, which he had been engaged in, if you know him, from early on. Although his parish life per se was fairly limited, he was always pastoring people. And you see him do that constantly every time you meet him. He does a casual conversation. Okay, so my first meeting with him was on a cassette tape recorder, cassette recording, I should say, of a lecture that he gave at Cambridge regarding the worship of ancient Israel. And that is reflected in his magnificent commentary on Leviticus. So I was intrigued by that lecture, which I heard from him on one of his trips into the United States. I was able to make contact with him. And then we're forever trying to recapture exactly how many times we've over the years. But what I just found out this last trip, his wife told me that when he came back from that trip to North America, he said to Claire, "I've met my soulmate." And I just cannot believe that. But the fact is that we were on the same wavelength theologically, and then developed a personal friendship over the years. It's amazing. So, and as you know, he's a well of inspirations when just cannot say enough of how much he's influenced what it is we teach in our doxology curriculum. And so I think that.
I'm going to follow that up. This wasn't intentional, but one of your, and you had mentioned this at some point, I don't remember where I heard you before I saw it in your writing, is your experience with the church, not just with the pastors of the church, but with the church, sitting between your parents,
Yep.
being catechized by them.
Yep.
And so my question then is there's one thing to maybe fall in love with or be at least intrigued by the pastoral office. Maybe I could do that. But isn't there also something about falling in love with his bride and saying, how this is my desire to be of service in whatever way that the Lord of the church could use me to serve his bride? And were there any occasions, any for instances, as I like to say, any for instances where you said, yeah, I learned this about the church, even in your growing up or your youth years as you lived it out, as you lived out your baptism within the body of Christ?
Well, I think I have a little church there in the prairie in western Minnesota. It's supposed to be formative church life. Full of sinners, like every other church. But people faithfully, week in and week out, tended to the word, discipling, lived out their faith by the grace of God. So yeah, to see that modeled in numerous people, Sunday school teachers, youth leaders, all of that. But as I look at it now from a maturity, I can see an example of a receptive posture toward the Word of God. I would not have said it that way as a child. So this is what we do. Christians do this. But yeah, I think definitely. I'm reminded of I had a good friend in college who was brilliant, man, just absolutely brilliant, far above my abilities, and so lost track of him over the years. And then in my second call, I ran into him again. He was in a graduate program in Semitic Studies at the University of Wisconsin. Absolutely brilliant guy. He and his family came to our little mission church. He invited think we were invited to their house actually for dinner. I remember him saying, because this is now, that's probably a good 12 years after we graduated from seminary, and probably 16 years after I first met him. And he's still in school. And he's working on PhD. I was the second PhD or whatever. And one of his comments I will never forget. He says, you know, I love the ministry, I just can't stand people. What he meant was I love theology. And that's great. But see, that's what the art of the care of souls flows up the science of theology. There's a disconnect. So the love of the church flows out of the love for the Lord. It's like Jesus says, love me, love my sheep. And all their stinkiness and all their contentiousness, everything else that goes with territory. But as you say, the church is the bride of Christ. He sees her perfectly. We see all of the other things. She looks like a mess. She's beautiful to him.
Certainly the bride of Christ is a result, and families too, from cultural shifts towards immorality in our country. And I think in pastoral ministry, just in my brief time in it, the amount of immorality that people don't bother to conceal anymore has grown to the point where discipline against, or discipline in service to children or people my age is a growing part of my ministry. You made the distinction between morality and holiness, and said that sexual immorality is not the root problem, but it is a problem, but a symptom of the greater problem. And I wonder if you have some counsel for pastors not to become obsessed with fighting for morality rather than speaking of holiness.
Well, we certainly don't want to stop talking about what's right and wrong. This is not the time for that. I mean, these are lawless times, and so God's law needs clearly to be taught, but in its proper way, and that's in service of the gospel. So, what I meant by that statement is, it's not as though if we could clean up our act, morally speaking, then we would be a godly people, but rather, holy people lead holy lives. So therefore, if there's this desecration or profanity or defilement going on in the life, in immoral life, that's a signifier, it's an indicator, it's a symptom of a deeper distress. There's a wrong God has been adopted, and there's misbelief has been embraced. And so in order to treat that, it's not to say stop sinning, but rather find your life in Christ and not in your gonads or whatever people are trying to impress upon you. So, yeah, I think so. That's an unfortunate confusion that reigns. Sanctification and morality somehow are equated. Moral life flows from sanctification. It's if I become moral, then I'm sanctified. The other way around. Does that make sense?